Yes. All good. Yeah. So as I said, we have Andreas.
Sorry, we can hear.
Yeah. Perfect. We have a meeting with Andreas Hagegård today, and we're going to talk about cultural differences between Swedish and Ukrainian people mostly. And of course, you're welcome to ask questions on the go, and to online participants, you can ask them in the chat. We recorded this session, and we're going to share this recording with you, and of course encourage you to ask the questions as much as possible, because Andreas here has this knowledge of how to deal with Swedes, right? So we hope to find the answers to these questions.
Of course.
Yes. Okay, so Andreas, yes, the floor is yours, and yeah.
Here is it.
Yes, it's that one.
And then
Then you go back to
I just click that one.
yes,
It's
exactly.
sharing.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, welcome everyone. I apologize if you were also participants the last time. I completely lost my voice. I was out with the flu, and you wouldn't have heard anything, and it would have been a bad time to do this. I want to start with a little bit of who and why am I here. I'm also going to ask you to quickly, the guys online, I guess, could just text or write something in the chat. I'm just curious about what industries are in the room. If I can somehow target whatever when I go through this. I'm sort of a flexible from the heart kind of speaker. So I have guidelines, but it's sometimes easy to change, and hopefully we can target more. So if there's some industries that I know more about, then I can target some of the topics that I cover. Also, it's very important that you slow me down if I speak too fast. I can get excited about this topic, and then I sort of ramble on. So just stop me or interrupt me and say please, or please explain if there's something that does not make sense, or I speak too fast or something like that. So who am I? I am Andreas. I have a degree in psychology, and after that an MBA in business administration. I really love groups, and the working with groups and people. So my history is mainly in IT as project or management or project management, where the group is not functioning. I have some computer science experience as well, or education, but I never really worked. I work with groups and people that don't function, often cultural differences. And since there are so many projects in IT, I've been mainly in IT, but I've done IT in a lot of industries and different settings, both on the business side and on the hardcore IT side. And specifically in this room, I guess I am because in 2011, I met my now wife, who is from Balaklia outside of Kharkiv. So I have traveled a lot to Ukraine the last 14 years, I guess it is now. And we were going to move there. We have 2 children, and we had tickets to fly out on the 25th of February, 2022. Sorry, I can get very emotional sometimes. So for a long time, I've really liked Ukraine, and our children, we picked Russian, I guess, because my wife's family speak that a lot, but we've changed that to Ukrainian, so they do modersmål, it's called in Swedish. In school, you can study your mother tongue, so they now both take Ukrainian, and I have really not learned. I had a teacher set up in 22, but I speak it very, very poorly in only a few words, unfortunately, but we will get there. Sooner or later, we're going to live there again, I guess. So that's, I've had a passion. I wanted to start a company since 2019, and then came the pandemic and then the war. But I am now responsible for our subdivision, NCP, the company I work for. We're starting a company in Ukraine. We stopped it due to the pandemic and the war, but now we're working with partners. So this training I have done for a lot of the partners, the consultants, IT consultants that we have working towards Swedish customers. And since I developed it, I've changed it a little bit with more focus on networking and maybe culture. And I called, I can't remember who I talked to and said, do you want this? I perhaps can give some ideas and help a little bit with what could ease your way of adapting to Swedish society and help you along with working in Sweden. That is short why I'm here. Any questions about me?
I have a question. I might be mixed, but what country are you from? Are you from Sweden?
I'm from Sweden, yes. Yeah, I grew up partially in the United States as well. But I was born in Sweden, lived here till I was 17, and then I spent 10 years in the United States, and then I came back to Sweden. But I'm Swedish, yes. From Värmland, that's very important. If you get to know the details of Sweden, it's the best county and region. We're very proud of ourselves. And we speak strange Swedish. At least my wife thinks so.
Like
Accent.
south of Sweden?
Sorry?
Is it
No,
like-
it's east. It's toward Oslo, right on the border before Norway. You drive through Värmland when you go to Oslo.
Are you kids still having like modersmål?
Yeah, they're young. They're 6 and 10. So I have young children.
Is it Ukrainian or Russian now?
Now it's Ukrainian. We started speaking Russian since the majority of my wife's family out in Balaklia spoke Russian. And back then we figured it'd be a bigger language. I started as well, very little. But then I guess like for so many, it changed. It changed for my mother-in-law as well. And we were able to change mainly they were actually quite good at speaking Russian, so it was easy. Well, Olivia, the younger one, she really hadn't started until recently, but my son had been and did very well in Russian, so therefore he was able to pick up, even though he was started a few years late with Ukrainian. But and my wife speaks it both, so we just picked one that we figured. If we travel a lot to the Baltic states and stuff, it might be easier, but it's a tough decision. And now we're moving, like so many, toward the Ukrainian area, I guess.
I asked because I'm actually modersmålslärare.
Are you really? Okay, yeah. On Lidingö is where my kids go.
Okay, I work in Nacka.
Yeah. Right. Any more questions? So if we ask the people to send you in the chat, just industry, if you can just say, I mean, if you don't have one, no problem.
We do have a couple of them. Maria is project controller, economy project manager. We also have software development in mobile, pharmacist as well, HR manager, IT and law. Someone else is typing, so yeah. I would say majority is project management.
Right. And if we walk around the table here, starting with you.
I would say IT sector and civil society, definitely.
I'm front-end developer, so IT sector is interesting.
It's instructional design for me. I work in education, but I'm looking for a job in instructional design, and it's pretty much any kind of industry. It's just a position that is called instructional designer and digital learner developer.
Right.
I would say project management, but also I'm moving to digital marketing.
A developer, and now I'm studying data science, machine learning, and so on.
Construction.
Construction.
Anyone is project manager in
Yeah.
some field.
Yeah, that's true.
It's impossible, but I was born in Balakleya, Kharkiv region. Yeah,
I've been there many times.
beautiful place.
It is.
I work as a sales manager for many years. My occupation is economy.
Answer of aviation industry.
Aviation industry.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Good. I will try to when I have ideas of something that I can target. I will do that throughout the presentation. Also, again, I want to stress: do raise your hand or interrupt me. I think it's much more important that we cover the right perspective for you, rather than I have to speak or talk exactly about what I have thought was the best idea. Just to fill in, I guess I was thinking about that earlier, but I forgot to say it. But I think that I've spent maybe 40 weeks in Ukraine over these. We've been there 3, 4, 5 weeks a year, pretty much since we met. So I spent a lot. To me, that's a lot of time, and I feel that I've gotten to know some of the industries, but obviously this is also very much my perspective. So don't hesitate if you want to challenge and ask, did you really understand that correctly? I'm certainly not saying that I'm correct. I'm saying what I think is correct, but I could be wrong. So I've chosen to call it the soft Swedish workplace as one topic. We are a softer nation, I would say. We obviously historically we've had less harsh times. We haven't been at war at all, and we've had stable times for a long time, which I think has created more of this. There's a saying in Sweden that you get something with your mother's milk as a child. You get some traits. In Sweden, we often say that we get consensus, group dynamics, diplomacy. I tend to think, based on a lot of people that I know, that in Ukraine, I think the expression would be more applicable if said you get hard sciences. It's you guys are much better at math, physics, and chemistry than we are in Sweden. We are more diplomatic. We get the softer side, and I think this sort of follows through a lot of these topics that I have. That we're more a soft group. You guys are mathematically much stronger than we are the hard sciences. That's a general idea why I say soft Swedish workplace. So hours. I think we tend to start work a lot earlier than you do in Ukraine. Here, it's common to start between 8 and 9, and you finish between 4, 5, 6 o'clock, but usually around 4 or 5, typical work hour in most offices. I understand you probably already have the concept of fika. It's a very powerful tool if you use it correctly. Fika will allow you, or for Swedes, it's important. I use it. I even have it on my LinkedIn. I have evangelist of fika or management by fika. I use it when I run a project. I will do at least one long fika. That's half an hour or so, which is more of a meeting, but I get the temperature of the group, so I can feel culture differences, etc. And a lot of people use that. It's not only for getting some nutrients and having some time off. It's a time for talking about work-related stuff. So fika can be a very constructive time as well. We have it to get away from the typical sitting in front of the keyboard or doing whatever you're doing, but think about it as a time to get to know the whole individual of your colleagues. I think that's also a concept in Sweden. I like to understand if a person has a family or if they like pets. The more I know as a manager or as a colleague of my colleagues, the better I can understand how they function in the workplace. And this ties into networking. I'll come back to it also, but networking in Sweden, I think, aim for quality instead of quantity. If you go to a networking event, don't try to get as many business cards or connections as possible. Try to find one or two people and talk to them rather in detail. That's going to give you much more chance of developing something down the road than getting as many connections as possible on LinkedIn. So try to focus on quality instead of quantity. And remember, I mean, networking takes a lot of time. Swedes are scared of new things. We're soft and sort of afraid of conflict, and we want to sit and be content in the situation where we are at right now. Arguments. I don't know if you're into this or not, but we are much more afraid of arguments than I think the Ukrainian culture is. When I first started traveling, my wife told me, okay, you don't do any of the shopping or booking tickets and stuff because it's a tougher world at the ticket counter at the train station than it is here. We're much organized in line and no I guess I don't know if I would call it screaming or yelling, but we're more calm and not as colorful would be, I guess, a good expression. But we tend to argue less, and we tend to take arguments and discussions much more personal in Sweden than I've experienced in Ukraine. Swedish AV after work. I don't know if you've experienced this. It's a version of fika that just happens after work, usually involving some alcohol. A lot of people will have some beer or wine. Come spring now, people will be hanging out. It's a very typical way, I would say, of also networking. If you're part of a big organization, you take this chance to go talk to colleagues, people from other departments, etc. And Swedes tend to be here I don't have a clear picture of how Ukrainians are. My guess would be that you're less shy than we are. My problem is if I go to Balaklia, for example, I was usually a very exotic person because there's not that many or weren't that many foreigners over there. So people, if we went out to a restaurant or something or would hang out at the square, people wanted to talk to me. Whereas here, I don't know if it applies the same way, but in general, I would say that Swedes are more shy than Ukrainians. I don't know what your experience is, but we get less shy with alcohol. That's also a very common Swedish trait. So take the opportunity if you get to go to an after work event. It could be sometimes they're even called maybe networking event or get to know a certain department. It's a common tool sometimes for big organizations. I was at an assignment at Tele2 last year, and then different departments used. I think they had it once a month or so, and it was sort of circling around the different departments. So the department had the after work would be at, let's say, IT or at marketing or at finance, and then they would do a short presentation of their department, and it would just be a normal hang around, have a beer after that. So that was a way of selling and introducing the different departments to the employees as well. So it's a good tool. I talked a little bit about the consensus. I mean, we are we're group people. We're not individually as strong-minded, I think, as the Ukrainian culture. We tend to more, okay, so how do you feel in a group? We tend to have too long meetings sometimes. We're sometimes afraid of making a decision. I don't know how much you follow in the politics, but I saw a meme I thought was very, very representative of how you, if you compare Finland and Sweden, and it had to do with how they managed some of the aggressions on cutting the cables in the Baltic Sea, whereas the Finns are, you know, I think much better at it. We're more like, oh, maybe it was a mistake. We're a little bit too soft sometimes, and we want to make sure that everyone in the group, including someone that opposes you in a meeting, agrees. We're too kind sometimes, which is not efficient to me. We have, I talked a little bit, we're honest and no shortcuts. I think that this, I'll talk about this in the easy and tough historically. The way, I'll tie this in also to the old versus young management. Historically, obviously, we hadn't had as tough times as Ukraine did. And the Soviet Union, I would also compare, because this has molded our cultures into being very different. You are more taking advantage of a situation, and it doesn't have to be wrong, but when you get an opportunity to get up front, you really take it, where Swedes are kind of, no, it's not me. We sort of don't want to bolster ourselves. We're afraid of showing off. If a Swede gets an opportunity to stand on stage and talk about something, he won't take that opportunity, I think, as much as a Ukrainian person who will take the opportunity and try to gain something from it. And I think this comes from the few opportunities that you had historically were less. So you had to take the opportunity as a culture 30, 40 years ago when you had it. Here we have plenty of opportunities. So instead we skip them. I've seen this a lot with my wife, where we think differently and act differently on, I think, based on our history. And when it comes to management, to me, it's kind of logical that being in the Soviet Union, you didn't have a lot of management and business training. It was sort of just decided. So you didn't have free enterprise. You didn't have what I consider, I don't know how I would translate affärsmannaskap. Is there anyone who would know what that is in Swedish? I was common business sense, I guess, in general, is how I translate it. Having had the environment and the free trade and starting of businesses and small businesses for a much longer time, I have experienced when I work with companies in Ukraine that you have specialists. You have a specialist in marketing, you have a specialist in development, you have a specialist in leading the company, whereas in Sweden it's more common with people that can do many of those roles, and you have a better general understanding of business sense. Do you feel that you've seen any of this at all, or please do interrupt me if you feel that Andreas misunderstood this.
Do you mean like that in Ukraine, like the position and the roles are more like separated?
Yes, they're separated, and there's, I would say, there's not as good a general understanding of running a business in the culture. It's kind of hard to when we have throughout these 6 years that I've been, well, not doing, trying to do a lot of business, but doing some. But we had a lot of meetings with people that that are now our partners. So we do deliveries of projects and stuff, and mainly just developers. But we can sit here and we talk about how do we sell this, what customers, etc. And often we run into, okay, so where are your sales specialists? But we're a small company, so our CEO and our owner are the salespeople, the same. And people are sometimes surprised at that, because I think that it's been roles have been narrower and more focused in the IT industry, at least, is my experience. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but it makes sense because there wasn't obviously a lot of this general business going on prior to 91. So what I learned from my parents and through talking around the dinner table at home or something is not necessarily the same stuff that Ukraine as a culture talked about prior to 91, I think. So it makes sense to me, and it also, in my experience, is what I've seen. So it's there's a lot of opportunity because there is room for improvement. My idea of why I wanted to start a company is that I think that I can contribute with general management skill, people skills, group skills, and the Swedish culture. As I said earlier, Ukraine has brilliant developers through this math, being good at math and the hard sciences, which is a good basis for doing a lot of that stuff. So the combination, I thought was great, because then we can help the Ukrainian companies develop and grow their business faster, perhaps, because we've done business in a different way for a longer time. So we have more experience that we can help them with. That was the idea, and we're still working on it. There's been some glitches with the war and the pandemic, but we will get there, and we will have an office in Kharkiv soon, I hope. It'll be a while, but now we have partners that we're working with, so it's coming along. It's quite important, I think, if you want to do good, to be on time for meetings in Sweden. I have a saying, I might be a little overzealous with this, but I'm rather 1 hour early than 1 minute late. And I think that Swedes, and this comes back to the arguments, Swedes hide their frustration. Compared to Ukraine, I think you will not notice if a manager is frustrated in you or colleagues. They will hide it because we don't want to tell people anything bad. We're afraid of that, so it sort of builds up. If Carl is always late to the meeting, I really won't say anything suddenly until after 20 times I try to get him fired instead. So it sort of builds up. We're afraid of talking honestly upfront with something that can be a little bit uncomfortable. We don't like, to talk down on people as much. We're more afraid of it, I'd say.
But then, sorry, Andreas, can I ask? But then, if we're talking about professional development, and you have manager Sweden, right? So how you're supposed to get honest feedback?
You have to talk to them and sort of get to know them and tell them. And this is why I think it's important to understand the whole person through the fika, where you can explain my psychology degree that I have. The biggest benefit I've had is that I understand myself. So when I run a new project or start a new group or something, I always make sure that everyone knows as much as possible about me. The more you know about me, the better you can understand me. And I understand myself better as well. So I think it's a way of using the time of talking about yourself at fika, and also obviously, any good managers, I'm not saying all do, but should have one-on-ones with people, depending on how early it on or where you're at work. But I try to do it at least if the times I've had big teams of personnel, I would say I would try to do it every quarter, to sit down for a lunch or a long meeting where you can just be private and open about things. And over time, obviously, you'll get to know each other. And I think that it's important to explain who you are to your manager. My wife and I are extremely different personalities. She's the typical math. She competed in math and loved mathematics and stuff. I couldn't stand it. I love the soft side of culture. So I try to tell her when she changes a job, you need to be careful in the beginning, because people will see you as very tough and not very friendly. And that's happened every time she's changed a job. But after 6 months, they realize, okay, it's probably her culture that does this, and then they see her for who she really is. So if she talks about that early on with new colleagues, it's much easier for her to come in. Question?
Do you have maybe some specific examples or some tips to the person who want to start like a new position in a Swedish company? Do you have some specific tips how to socialize with your coworkers? For example, if you don't have common task or something like that, how to show you who you are?
So the example is you have a job and you want to fit more into the group.
No. If I, for example,
When you
start
search
a new job
in the future.
In
the future.
in the future.
Yeah, let's imagine
Okay, but to get the job or to better fit in once you have the job?
Socialize with new coworkers.
Yeah.
For example, if you don't have common task.
Right.
How do you align with Sweden?
Yeah. It's very different depending on the size of the company, obviously. But I would say that probably something that will happen everywhere is to go to lunch together. If some people have what do you call it? Matlåda. Well, you bring your own meal.
In the
and
food
you warm it
box.
up. Yeah. So you warm it up in a microwave at the office, or you go out to lunch at a restaurant. And that, I would say, Swedes will always, I think, be open to a lunch date. Take the opportunity. Does anyone want to go to lunch? Or sit down with people, try to plan lunch if you're in the lunchroom at the office. That you can always do. And then, like I said, it comes back to try to be honest about yourself and explain, you know yourself quite well. So if you think that earlier, I tell my wife, earlier people have had a tough time with me being very straightforward and not thinking about the consequences on how people might take that. And if she tells that to people early on when she started a new job, it's been so much easier for her, because then people are prepared for it. And she says, it's nothing personal. I'm just much more focused on coming forward rather than doing the soft chit chat of knowing the person the way we think in Sweden. I had a good example actually, where to me it was, well, fun or sad, but I had a manager that I knew, and she was working with she had a team of one of the people were Ukrainian, lady in her 40s maybe. Very competitive world in IT/M&A. Do you know what M&A is? Mergers and acquisitions. It's like the hardcore tough world of finance. They consider themselves the top management consultants, but they work a lot and they're usually pretty bright people. So anyhow, she had a team of very competitive people, including this Ukrainian lady, and a person died in the team. Very unexpected, sad accident, and she remembers this very well. She talked to the Ukrainian lady and you know, and her response was, "Oh, that's very sad. Are you recruiting a new person for that position?" Swedes would never do that. Whereas knowing my wife, you know, it has nothing to do with a personal feeling. She was just focused on how do we solve the project. And that might be an extreme case, but my experience is it's much more common in Ukraine that you're focused and sort of skip the soft skills because you want to solve the math problem rather than laugh about it. And sometimes sometimes I use extremes to show you the general idea, but to me it's much more focus on getting the job done than feeling good along the way. Whereas Swedes sometimes don't worry about getting the job done, we just want to feel good along the way. Because we want consensus. Whether we solve it good or semi-good, not important, as long as the group is happy.
Might it be somehow connected to their competition between like, I don't know, now I'm a little bit confused because then I thought like, why are we like that, Ukrainians meaning, right? Why are we so straightforward and just like pushing, like, you know, the machine, and because of the competition, and like you want to get the job, right? And you want to get the reward because, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have a feeling that we were raised that we have to be like perfect in everything, and then we have to like push, deliver, because you have to be the best of the best. And that's how we've been raised, and I think that's also affects in work as well. So we are just like too pushy, especially if like you have a job competition and you need to get this position and beat all the other candidates, kind of.
You're much more competitive. I think that I agree with that. Plus, I think that it ties into there weren't that many opportunities before, especially a long time ago. But I think a lot of this, you could say that tons have happened since 91, of course, but I'm a firm believer that we have much more old culture in us than we think. From grandparents, from parents, from, and it stays longer than you think. So I think that even though some of you were probably born and experienced very little of the Soviet time, it sticks with the discussions, the culture, how things happen, etc. And so the combination of being a more competitive and stronger culture, I think will create that and make you more. You have to take. You are more competitive. Plus, you have to take care the opportunities when they come, so you compete more.
So like very new to the system of stress management, self-management. So we're not that used to working with stress and load. So that's why we're so focused as well, because we were always told we have a goal, we have to achieve it in this kind of period. And if you're not done, then it's gonna have like probably bad consequences.
But how was that not stressful?
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Like right now, I see a lot of like this trend in company management is that like people focus a lot on the group work much more than we did like before.
Mhm.
I mean, in Ukraine, if we're talking about like Ukrainian landscape. So this is like it's very conflict. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's you easily like catch this that people are changing in that way because we were so goal oriented before, and now we are like, okay, maybe we should have a stop and think here instead of just like pushing it forward. So I think it's changing to the like it's more closer to Swedish culture now.
I'm sure, yeah. And I mean, I think that's the natural evolvement of any culture with your background, probably some of the other satellite country, whether it be Georgia or I don't know enough about their culture, but I would assume they have similar experiences. Question?
Yeah, I think I can explain this thing. I think earlier it was something like you should do this or die.
Mhm.
And when people live in this way for a long time, they burn out at
Yeah.
all, and they can't work anymore. And they're good specialists, but they can't work. So system try to find balance when these people work good, but all the time without burnouts.
Yeah.
But this is also like a part of a survival mode.
Yeah.
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 And you've had plenty more of survival mode than we in Sweden have had. We've had a very luxurious, there's a saying in Sweden called räkmacka, which is a very good sandwich. We can just enjoy the sandwich and not really, we've had easy times, you know, compared to a lot of, especially the culture in general, and some of the, when I talk to my wife is, I'm 54 and my wife is 46. So she obviously experienced some of it, but not all of it, her life and so on. But we have very, very different ways of looking at things sometimes.
I have an example of the question Renika asked about this feedback and feedback loop. So I have a friend that works for a Swedish company, and I don't think she like maybe complained a little bit too much or something. Maybe she was late as well. But there was some time that she just told me that for a few months they were so happy with her and, you know, like smiling, telling her that she was great at work. And then suddenly after a few months, they just had a meeting with her after she was fired. So they hadn't given her any kind of feedback on that, on her behavior and like her performance, but then suddenly she was fired. So this is like also an example to your question about feedback.
We're terrible at that. We're afraid of it, and well, like I said, we hide. So I would say it's pretty much up to you. If I were, let's pretend that I'm Andreas, the Ukrainian. I have a hard time understanding the Swedish culture. I'm tough as nails, and I sort of, this other Andreas, me, has told me that I should talk about this. I would go into my manager and say, okay, Andreas, I have my culture. Please help me understand yours. Am I doing things correctly? Are there any things that you think I should do differently? Are there any things I do wrong? And try to focus on correcting forward rather than finding errors back. What would you, as my manager, like me to change and improve? I want to make your world easier. And I want to behave, you know, properly so I can stay on this job forever, or at least 5 years or whatever. So that's something you can do, and be honest about it. It might be some people. It's different, obviously, depending on what kind of manager you have. But I would say that for sure, 9 times out of 10, in the long run, you'll benefit from it. Because also something that Swedes like, or people in general like in management, if you want to improve. I have a situation now where I have a team at my current assignment. I have 2 young, very bright guys, but they're lazy. We don't do that tough of an assignment, so I would rather have a less bright person, but that wants to do the job. Not the efficiency might be the same, but the young lazy guys, I have to sort of walk around and sort of push them, whereas a person who has an aim and wants to work would sort of push themselves, and I would instead train them. And that is so much easier for me. So most managers will want to understand and see that you want to improve. That's a very big thing. I don't know. I think it's pretty much there, but I think it's extra big in Sweden, since we tend to hide our frustration. We just let it go, and suddenly you're fired.
But is there any sign that you
can see from your colleague that you might doing something wrong to understand?
There's tons of them. I'm trying to see if there's, I'm sure there will be some sort of gossip. It depends on how involved you are with some. I would say in a normal world, you probably know some people and you get along with some people in a big department. I would think that some of them would give you a hint a little bit if they're nice colleagues and they like you. They will get, the IT department thinks you're not being nice when you send down requests to them or something. They'll give you a little gossip hint, but it's really we're really poor about doing that because there could be some and there might not be some. I would say to have an active, we talk about high ceilings. Do you know that expression in Sweden? Where you allow for even the tough questions to be discussed. Try to have that with a manager and sometimes colleagues. You could ask this question to the colleagues. Hey, I'm new here in Sweden. I know we have some slight differences in our culture. Please let me know if I do something wrong. My aim here is to improve and to continue to be part of this team. That will surprise a lot of people here. Oh, she wants to do this or he wants to do this. We'll give her, that will give you much longer and probably you will have time to correct your errors before you're fired. Good enough on that? Oh, go ahead.
I have little other questions. What is safe topics for Fika Talks?
For Fika Talks?
Yeah. I feel that in Ukraine we have other topics we can talk about, and in Sweden it's other, and I can't get this.
I think you have a good point there, and I think also I would like to say it depends a lot on the team. Where it could be even within an organization, you might have a very colorful team member that sort of sets the standard, or good or bad. I have one of my, I don't know, I think it's coming on the next slide, but one of my favorites that my wife told me, and I'm not, but please confirm if it's correct, but and I guess it's a generalization, but in Sweden, a cocktail icebreaker, we call it in English, is when we meet someone at after work or at a fika. So what do you do? Then I mean, what do you do for a living? What's your job? Whereas I think in Ukraine, it's much more common to say, what is your hobby? Okay, because that's that, and the people, when I talk to my wife, a lot of people have said that it's not very common to ask people what they do for a living as a standard initial icebreaker question.
When we meet new people, we always ask them what you do for a living, what is your job, what is your name, and then we talk about the hobbies or specific interests to have to find something common.
In Sweden, you never talk about hobbies. No.
This is so weird. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm just like, now I'm thinking it's like
no, I mean early on. I mean later on for sure. But not in an initial, I would say, if I come, let's say we do an after work or even if it's a long night, 1 or 2 hours, you sit there and maybe have some snacks and a beer or two. Very rarely will you the first time come into hobbies. You might discuss some interests, but hobbies, if I
is it too personal?
I think so for a lot of people. Obviously this is a generalization, but it's not common for sure. You will get to that later, but not for sure, not early on. Yeah, I would say 90% of the time I will end up in work-related discussions, talk about the frustration of running out of time as a small children's parent in an advanced type of job or whatever. But it's going to be job related for the beginning or a large part of the beginning of the time, I think.
You know, I have a colleague that I've been working with for like a few months, and she was comfortable enough to talk to me about her mother's death, about the war, and how a crazy guy like almost crashed her car, and like when we had fika. So, and if you, it was like a few colleagues that are comfortable of talking about that. So I don't know, varies a lot. So some people.
Oh yeah.
She's Swedish. She's
And
Swedish.
all the things I say now are generalizations. You will always have extremes on both ends. I'm talking about the average mainstream person, as I believe it. So you will always see extremes. You'll see very open, you know, Swedish people that are not shy at all. These are, because I think it's easier to talk about generalizations. Because if you talk about extremes, you can cover, it could be anything. So it's just a general idea. All of the topics and angles that I have would be more a general average median person than any extreme. And it's different in different industries as well. You know, if you do arts and culture, I come from a family of musicians. Obviously they are much more usually open and theatrical about life than a nerdy mathematical economics finance engineer who will sit with their numbers in a corner. So it depends on so really, I mean, don't take my word for it, and certainly we'll run into different versions of it. Where were we? On-time meetings. I think I mentioned this, make it simple for your manager. That applies to any I think any job anywhere in the world. But it took me a while to learn that and realize that how important that was. I worked with a quite advanced consultant job for 3 years. We did different projects, and I had a manager. She was great, a good time, and and I did some really big advanced IT projects for her. And when we left, or when she left the company before me. The only thing she remembered was that I reported time on time. When you're a consultant, it's very important to report your time every week so they can invoice the customer. And that's all she remembered, that I was so good with reporting time. So I made her life easy because she didn't like conflicts. So she didn't like calling my colleagues, other consultants who were late with their time reporting, so she couldn't send the invoice to the customer. So didn't matter if we did projects poorly, as long as she didn't have to nag on us. And it's a typical example of a Swedish manager avoiding the tougher discussions. To constructively talk about the strategy of the project, fine. But to once a week call and remember, Andreas, could you please turn in your time report? That's she didn't like that. So she remembered me for turning in my time reports on time. That's an example of, and you can ask people, ask HR or a manager, HR. If you're networking and looking for a job, you can either write them an email or if you are lucky enough, you can do sometimes they have recruiting days. Some of the big companies, talk to them. What do I need to do? How should I best portray myself or show you that I can do to be employed? If you are employed, ask your manager, how do I best satisfy your needs as an employee? What do you think is most important for me to do or improve?
Will they answer honestly?
I think they will. I think they will. They won't be used to the question because Swedes, like I said, we tend to avoid the tougher discussions, but
It is a tough discussion, right?
no, it is, but managers will manage it better than just an average person, hopefully. Plus, let's say they answer you semi-honestly the first time, but as you get comfortable learn the whole person in the many fikas that you have, that you use constructively to get to know the individual. You can even make a plan on how to ask questions if you want to, to try to understand the whole group. As you get to know each other, they will be more and more honest with you. And joke about it. Remember, Andreas, you know I'm a little tougher from my culture. Can you make sure you're tough back at me so I understand? And sort of they will laugh at that, and slowly you will get more comfortable with the interaction between your colleagues and or your manager. That's a very easy way, or easy, but allow what do we call it in English? Well, basically, you give of your own errors. You allow people to see your own errors. We call it in Sweden to bjuda på sig själv. You allow yourself not to look the best, and to sort of joke around. I'm from this little tougher culture, or more mathematical culture, or whatever is suitable for your situation. Laughter and humor is a very good way of adapting to something that helps you along the road. We're talking a lot of details. I hope it's interesting, and tell me if I'm ranting too much. So we're talking about making it simple for your manager, quality versus quantity, old and young management, recruiting. I think I mentioned that a little bit. I'm coming to network later on as well. Swedes, I would almost say, lie about their networking, and or you really need to know someone to be able to use networking as a tool. And when I mean know, that's why I said my guess would be, let's say you go to a networking event with 100 people. You're much more likely to get something out of that if you pick only one person to talk to, rather than finding 25 out of the 100 and having some sort of small connection with them. Because we don't trust shallow interactions in Sweden. I don't know. When I moved to the United States, I said that I don't like the American way of talking in line at the grocery store. They just talk about the weather, or there's no depth or genuine small talk. It's not worth anything. And then I lived there for 10 years, and I realized, wow, this is brilliant. It's much more fun. It doesn't mean anything. And now I'm frustrated that if we don't have anything in depth or solid to say, we don't talk at all in line in Sweden. Unless there's a power outage or the subway stands still, then everyone talks. If the subway is running normally, then you sit there and just look at each other. We're afraid of having small talk. Did you have a question? No? Just...
What type of humor should we use? Because in Ukraine, we use a lot of sarcasm and irony. And it feels like it's not really good in Sweden. Am I right?
I think that's very, very tough question, because it depends a lot on the group you're in. As I said, standards will be set by that group. Probably try to be, in general, if I were to guess, more politically correct, and less, more mainstream and politically correct, until you can probably feel how the group reacts, and it's going to be very different in different places. But it comes into another topic that I will cover later, but it's good to take now. There's a big difference in the relationship between the sexes in Sweden and Ukraine, the gender relationships. Whereas I'm assuming that Me Too was not big anywhere or really big in Ukraine, the same way it was over here.
It's coming now.
It's coming now, yeah.
It's better.
But my experience, and we've seen this a lot also with some friends of my wife that's tried to come before the war and everything, before being refugees. They obviously would come here on vacation and try to find, you know, a suitable partner and relationships. And I've had friends that travel in Ukraine, and there's been a lot of problems with the cultures don't understanding each other between, because the way I describe it is that Ukraine has more historical relations between the husband and the wife than here. On the other hand, Sweden now is too equal sometimes. We try to be a perfect match, which, you know, people will have their own opinion about that, but it's considered, many people consider it's hard for both genders to know, where do I do it? Am I allowed to be feminine? Am I allowed to be masculine? Or am I just being a brute if I try to be too masculine? Or am I being too feminine, you know, showing off? There's a lot of discussion of that in Sweden that I see very much less of in Ukraine. And there are more. When I was, we're not even a common. I'll take an example. When the first few times I did business over in Kharkiv, I was on parental leave. So I would have my daughter, no, it was my son then, with me in a stroller, and we'd have business meetings, or not very formal ones, but at an office or a coffee shop, and you know, most guys had never seen that. And my wife, you know about parental leave in Sweden, right? It's quite long. So my wife was home for 4 months with each child. I was home for 16 months with each child. That's unusual for Sweden, but it's not. It happens now and then. And when I was in Kharkiv, you know, most guys were like, they really didn't understand what I was doing. My wife was sick or something. Was almost the feeling I got. So you have and if I were to guess, my father was home one day when my mother had surgery or something with me and my brother. But that was in the 70s. So I'm assuming that Ukraine is somewhere in between that and where Sweden is now, because you still have more of the traditional gender roles than you do in Sweden.
Nowadays it's changing.
It's better with the younger
Yeah.
generation.
Of course, and information flows much easier now. But it's still something that hopefully you won't see a lot of it here, that people misunderstand or anything. But Sweden tends to be too woke sometimes. I feel it's you can't. And I'm thinking about when it comes to the jokes, they need to be very politically correct. And me and my wife have our way of talking, but the way she tells jokes is not suitable for Swedish women a lot of times. Not at all. But and we laugh at different things than our neighbors do, but that's life. But as long as you're aware of it, you know, just you'll be able to function and sort of fine tune and just listen in and I sometimes if I'm at a new group, okay, for some reason we're talking jokes and I say, okay, let me know if this is bad. It's a non-politically correct joke. I'd like to tell it, but if you have problems with that, raise your hand. And sometimes people say, I don't like those, and then I don't tell the joke. And then they're frustrated because they don't know what it was, if it was too bad or not. But you can do that as well. Just feel your way forward, and you'll probably find a way. But if I would say start easier rather than tough, probably.
Sorry, before we switch to the next slide, should we answer 2 questions from the chat?
Please.
Yep, just a second. So the first one, I think it was pretty much in the beginning from Maria, how to understand you're in contact or job interview or a pre-interview, if they are interested in me or just polite, as Swedes are always.
So the question is if you're in an interview or
Yeah.
a pre-interview,
Yeah.
if they're interested or not.
Yes, how to understand if it's just Swedes being polite or they are really interested in you as a candidate.
In general, it depends on the industry, but I would say if it's anything that's academic or semi-advanced type of job, that's not like a mainstream something that you swap in and out of that. A job that takes you a while to get to know and learn. If you're in an interview, they're interested. Always. I think it's very rare that any manager today has time to pick out more than 5 candidates that they will interview. So and a lot of jobs, it's a tough market out there. So for the majority of the job, they'll have 50, 60, 100 applicants. So if you're at an interview, they are interested.
You have this right to feel special.
Yeah, I think you can still, do good or bad. One thing you should know about government or public jobs, they are required by law to do interviews, and they need to be very open about it to let you know how many were selected, how many interviews, etc. And it's a lot of administrative work for them to recruit. Sometimes they have a person designed for the job. They still need to do 3 interviews because by law that there's a lot of governing things about how public function needs to be open and objective. Sometimes you can run into trouble with that because there really is already a candidate that will get the job. They've aimed it that way, but they need to do an interview. I would say it's still beneficial for you because 99 out of 100 people doing interviews will pick people that are interested in, and it might give you a good opportunity for a similar job down the road. So you're always, if you're at an interview, you're always of interest to that company or person, I think. Unless it's like a job market, like a job fair, and they just, we do quick interviews like speed dating, but for interviews with company. Then it might be polite, but if you're actually called to an interview at Tuesday at 3:00 at the office, you're always interesting. You might not be the top candidate, but you're a potential candidate because you don't in today's fast environment, people don't do interviews with people. It's a waste of time if you're not interesting. So I would say yes.
Okay.
Next one.
Yeah, from Syria. Andreas, it was really nice to hear that you're positioning yourself as a FICA evangelist. I really like this tradition. I have a question about the so-called Jantelaw.
Jantelagen, yeah.
Is it just a literary concept, or does it still influence contemporary Swedish society and business relationship?
Sure, it does. Have everyone heard about it? Jante. It means we're all equal. So I cannot be better than you, and you cannot be better than me. And there's a lot of jealousy involved also. If it could be applied to anything, success, career, beauty, strength, nice car, nice garden, anything. We Swedes do not like to and do not like others to stand out.
Is it the reason why they don't like ambitious people? I've been told that I shouldn't show people that I'm ambitious at work because they won't like it.
Yes, I would say some environments like ambitious people, and they allow it more, but it's usually typical. I would say that the most ambitious company I work with, Tele2. I don't know if you're familiar with that, if you heard about their trainee. They had them like the most famous trainee program in probably Scandinavia for a while, with young people working crazy hours, getting really, really good jobs and tons of experience. There's some interesting documentaries on it. They're called Luma, because they turn on the light in the morning and they turn off the light in the evening. They're there first and last. They allow much more ambition than, for example, Telia, the old government-owned teleco, whereas the young, Tele2 was the young competitor with a much younger culture. But in general,
What was it called? This Tele2.
Tele2, it's a
Yeah, I mean the program that you were talking about.
their trainee program. The trainees are called Luma.
That one.
Yeah, Lumas, I guess, in plural. I think they're still out there. It was just sold, but that was a fun company to work for, and they had a lot of ambitious people. But I would say in general, yes, it's good to show much less ambition than you would in Ukraine, would be my general answer to that question. But it also has to do with how well you know people, how you can probably get a feel for that. But the general answer is yeah, probably.
Well, I wonder about the word ambitious, because I've had a lunch with this person who works in my like star position, like dream position, and she told me that, wow, you're so ambitious. She's Swedish, so I wasn't sure how to react to that, because I know that Swedes don't like ambitious people in general. I mean, at work. And she told me that, and I was like, oh, should I like say like no or yes?
But I don't know. It's a tough question, because I'd say that if you have a personal relationship where you're not a threat to, I mean, if I met you guys at a networking event, to promote Ukrainians or whatever, and we just chit chat and talk, and I see that you're ambitious, I wouldn't have a problem with it. It's when you compete in your work environment. If I'm not threatened by you, if you don't want, take my position or get ahead of me in the company, as who we're both competing for the same manager role or whatever, then it might be tougher. I would say it's a little bit of an overstatement, but in general, a lot of people will look, I wouldn't say down, but they won't give you as much back if they feel that you're not trying to compete for the future with them. They'll give you a more honest relationship, whereas, well, potentially she might steal my job. I'll hold back a little bit on being as friendly. You don't have to be unfriendly, but it could be slightly bad. But then again, I think Sweden is changing a little bit. We're getting more and more of allowing competitive situations. So I would feel my way forward and see, and I wouldn't be afraid of saying, I'm struggling with being too competitive sometimes. Then you can make sort of a joke about it, and you get to feel for what they talk about or how they feel about it.
I wouldn't say that I was competing with her, because she was working already at the company I was interested in, and they were hiring.
Mhm.
So we just like met for lunch to talk about the position. And she's also like, she has a senior level job, and I was aiming for the middle.
But I mean, I think that being honest I'd love to do what you do one day down the road. Is not going to be often bad, and then it also depends on what industry and world you're in. Some industries and worlds allow much more competition. Now, one area where I am not good at, but I think it could be an issue, is I've seen it when I've managed a large organization with women, and being a male, I have a hard time with the traditional differences. Whereas, at least in Sweden, I think in some extent all over the world, male interaction tend to be more straightforward, sometimes more aggressive. whereas female to female integration tend to be more gossip, hidden, devious, behind your back rather than screaming and yelling. And I saw some of that, especially between older. This was a customer service department that I was responsible for. We had a group of maybe 10 women that were like 50 to 55. And then you had a bunch of, or 5 or 10 that were 25 to 30, coming in. And some of the stuff that these older ladies did to the younger ones, because they felt threatened by them coming, being sometimes, a lot of the older women were uneducated, the young ones had a degree, and they felt they weren't comfortable with that. And then it was tough for the younger girls, because they would use their seniority and do some sneaky, devious stuff. And this is something that it's hard, because I don't see it and feel it as a male the same way as you probably, but it's the have you read the book Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus? A lot about that. We are so different that it's hard for us to understand each other. And I had a hard time with that department because it's hard for me to relate being male, I guess, in some extent, because what I'm used to. So I think it could be tough. And sometimes it's tougher for a female to be competitive in Sweden than it is for a male. But this also ties back to the historical, even in Sweden, we had the traditional gender roles. But don't be afraid of it. You'll find an area. And also, if you find the right manager, a competitive, strong manager will love, once they get senior enough to where they're not threatened, they will love to bring you under their wing and help you along the way, because they don't want an average person, to, a lot of people will, I do that now. When I was younger, I used to be more threatened about people making, leaps or advancing quickly. I wouldn't say I'm looking for retirement, but the team I have now is between 21 and 35, the people. And I love working with these 20-year-olds. They're young, they're hungry, and I can sometimes laugh at the way they're naive in thinking of how to move forward in careers and stuff. And I love having them along, and I'm not the least bit threatened. So find a very senior person in that field that you want to do, and try to get to know her. You shouldn't. It's much easier to be competitive. The more senior the person is, the less of a threat you are if you're competitive and young.
But those senior people I meet, it's quite a lot of people I've met already.
Yep.
They still to this day they see me and they think I'm kind of I don't want to say a child, but they see me as a very, very junior type of person to the team, and they're actually pretty straightforward with this as well.
And is that wrong, you mean, or?
No, I mean that it's it impedes me, it's an obstacle for me, because they're oh yeah, but you're young, probably you should look for a company that's with a much younger team, because we're more in our 40s here. You would be so bored with us, which I don't think is true. So I always try to redirect those sentences, but still there's a lot of people that think is this way, because the industry is also there's a lot of people that work in my industry with the corporate learning, but mostly it's people after 40, in their 40s.
Right.
So that's
Well,
fine.
that's true.
Unfortunately, I know too little bit about that industry, and couldn't tell you.
It's personal training, staff training. It has to do also something with your job.
Yeah, for sure.
Any kind of companies has HR development and L&D.
Yeah,
training.
and from what I know, I couldn't say that it's different, and I don't know why there would be. You're saying that it's less of a normal age spread, like you don't get to do it until you're over 40, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to actually to say that you don't have to, you cannot get into the field until you're 40, but most of the people that work on the position I'm aiming for, they mostly in their 40s. And they don't necessarily come from education, they don't have this experience, which I have, but they came from other types of jobs, and they came as a mature experts. So there is not that much like junior opportunities in the industry, and this is like also it's frustrating to hear from people that, oh well, you should like wait a bit for this. And
But couldn't you take I mean, unfortunately, that's something I think I have that. I will do this. We'll see where. I don't know. Sweden is poor at. If I compare United States to Sweden, United States you can take a junior level job and work your way up. In Sweden, you can do that, but you need to change companies. We're poor on recruiting internally a lot of companies. So if you come in on one level, you stay at that level, or it's tougher to move. When you switch companies, it's easier to move levels sometimes. We're terrible at. It's getting better, but we have been very poor at recruiting and promoting internally, especially mid-size and smaller companies. Large companies have realized that how expensive it is to recruit. So if you're 1,000 employees plus, they will have programs for trying to build and develop people internally. Which, by the way, if you can get your foot in the door of a really large, old corporate world like, let's say, Länsförsäkringar, an insurance company, they have tons of opportunity. You can start at junior level and work, and they have plenty of money. They can send you to educations and stuff. It's a good growing ground where you can develop your first few years in the Swedish world, and it gives you an opportunity to pick and select because it's such a large corporation, so you can go many different directions from that first job.
Thanks for checking.
Right.
But she told me that they don't have the system of like referring people to the company, so you will have to actually get into the company on your own. They cannot recommend people, so it's gonna be like tougher.
Maybe I don't know enough about the recruitment process to know about that, but
She told me that like they don't have
probably right.
system of referring people to the company.
That's unusual. I've actually never heard. Most everyone that I know of have at least, some way of referring people. Yeah, that's strange because it's a very good way of getting good candidates, I think.
I don't know. Well, I don't think she told me this because she like didn't like my portfolio or my CV because we had a really like good chat. But still, she's sweet, so maybe she was just hiding things. But she told me that they don't have this system in their company.
That could be a Swedish lie because people that's also. One of the problems with Swedish work market is that it's very, very employee friendly. It's very expensive to get rid of a person in Sweden, which is why it's also why companies are afraid of hiring. Because if you are a bad candidate, not just it could be that you're stealing or causing problems for the company. It's very expensive to get rid of you. It costs a lot of money. That's why people are afraid to hire, and the hiring process is often very long and requires many steps, and people are very cautious about it. Which is also, I don't know, depending on what industry, but to start as a consultant is often very good. That almost sometimes can turn into a trial employment. You work as a consultant for 6 months or a year, and then you can usually, or it's quite often, if you do a good job, you can be offered a position. By the way, sorry, did we answer the question about jantelagen enough? I forgot to ask.
I think so. At least this person, Siri, didn't write anymore about that.
Okay.
So I guess we did.
So jantelagen exists for sure. Yeah, I think I have it further on the road. Was that enough question or answer for your question so far? Yeah, at least a try to do it. But we've covered some of these. Family balance, and this ties into a lot, I think, also with the being equal. here in Sweden, I think it's much more common that you have both the male and the female take care of the kids if they're sick. Compared to Ukraine, you'll see it more here. We try to balance family life with vacation and stuff, and to do stuff as a family together. Daycare is, at least the ones we've seen here, our daycare now is open between 6:30 and 5:30. Whereas I think at least we tried some over longer periods in Kharkiv, and they were open till 8 o'clock at night, some of them, which is unusual. And the kids also take, they had nap time much older than the Swedish kids do, because they were up much later, even at younger ages. So daycare is a little bit different. Usually I would say that most parents drop off their kids ±8 o'clock and pick them up 4:30 or so. There's sort of a competition on picking up earlier, because this means you're in control of your time, and you can spend time with your family, and that's fancy. Parental leave, work hours. We talked about that. I think, or at least my experience is that Ukraine has a later work day, maybe 9 or 10-ish until 6, 7-ish.
6 or 10 to 7.
Yeah. And here it's 8, possibly 9, but then you would flex, so you probably work from home at some point, but very rarely do you have meetings past 4:30 or 5, unless it's like a project where you're running out of time toward the end or something like that. VAB, is paid by the government when you take care of your kids. Work after office hours happens depending on what position you're in. I have almost my whole career, I don't think I've ever worked a 40-hour week on average, because I sort of want to give that. Maybe nowadays I do when I've had kids and stuff, but in the beginning I was very career oriented, and I wanted to be a super senior manager, and then I realized that this is not fun. So I stopped and got more lazy and tried to do project management really well, so I can do it better and better and work less and less. And that was somewhat prosperous, I guess. But now I do not work as much. But I always try to give a little extra, and this comes back to I want to make it easy for my manager. And so if I can do some extra time and take some extra responsibility, might be only 10-15 minutes, half an hour extra now and here and there when needed. So a lot of jobs don't offer overtime. Instead, you have 1 extra week of vacation, but there are a lot of restrictions on how much overtime you can work according to some of the labor laws.
It's written in collective agreements.
Yeah, that's yeah, exactly. I meant the labor laws, but kollektivavtal, exactly. At Telia, I experienced that they actually kept track of that. At the consulting companies, they really don't keep track. But then again, a lot of times you're also paid by the hour as a consultant, so you make more money. You don't get overtime, but you get a bonus if you work a lot of hours in that project and stuff. So it's a little bit different. But I think that if you want to do a good job, put in an extra hour a week, and don't be afraid to do it, because it will be beneficial for you if you want a career, and if you want to either keep the job if there's layoffs, or move up if you're interested in moving up in positions. As a consultant, sometimes you run into forced vacation, because A lot of the companies you have like at least a minimum wage or a full monthly wage that is set. So if you happen to be in between two assignments and not being able to bill your time as a consultant, many companies will force you to take vacation, especially if it's vacation time, even if you don't want to. There's some debate on how much they can do, but they can certainly do some. Obviously, it's a give and take situation, but it's mainly when it comes to consulting. If you have a regular employment and are not sold toward customers, it's more of actually finding a time where you can mix and match with your colleagues so that you cover that team or department's duties for the summer. And the only requirement, I think, is that a company needs to give you at least 3 weeks straight if you want to during the 3 summer months or something like that by law, if you require it.
But I also heard and know that in a lot of companies, full-time employees, not consultants, like they have like July, you have these 3 weeks when you have to take the vacation because whole Sweden is off.
Yeah. But that's also the majority of your vacation at that time. Usually, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of a problem with it because it's often that it's easier to take vacation at that time because then everyone else can be, if you want to hang out with a friend or a cousin or a relative, that they usually can take their vacation, and your spouse, your husband or wife can take their vacation at that time also. So it almost always, like the team I have now, we take our vacation, the whole team, between midsummer, which is June 20th or something, and August 15th. So the whole team will do, so at least half of the people are in at all times, but it just turned out that way. So people want me. It's usually not a big issue, but some of them, and also you can have some projects that shut down, and then it's okay, you get July, period. So there are some extent of forced vacation that I think some other cultures are not used to.
And we have one question in the chat from Maria. I wonder if the working hours are paid if the person go into the dentist or to the kindergarten, etc., during working time. If you need to visit the doctor or again pick up the kids, like how do you manage this within the working time?
I would say it depends, but the majority of my assignments have been that you deliver 40 hours a week whenever you can. So if you, and I think that's quite common that when you have small kids, you leave, you come into the office at 9 and you leave at 3:30, 4 o'clock, go home, put the kids to bed, and then maybe between 10 and 11, you put in a couple of hours answering email at night. So you get to do the 40 hours ish, but it doesn't have to be necessarily the exact between 8 and 5. So that would be the common world that I've seen. When it comes to positions that, require specific times, it's usually most positions will allow you to flex some, where you maybe now and then you have a team meeting at night because you need to be at the office or something, so you can sort of interact those times. You can never be denied to go to the dentist or the doctor or the office. When it comes to childcare, it's very common when people pick up and out. The employer cannot deny you to go down to, I think, 75% or maybe 70% by law. When you have small children in daycare, you can say, I want to do 70% of my position, and they can't deny that, which would give you time to pick up and leave. So there's a combination of all of those, I would say, is the answer. More questions?
Not for now.
Right. Culture in general. Well, here's the one that where you thought I was wrong, which is good. I'll remove that for next time. because I thought, and a lot of people I talked to were more likely to talk about hobbies than work after a while.
Maybe not us in this room.
No, yeah, could be. But it's good with feedback. I think we're much, much more emotional to most cultures, and certainly compared to Ukraine is my experience, especially I think the males. Male, I believe that Swedish males are less harsh and more showing emotion than an average Ukrainian male.
Don't think so.
You don't
Maybe
think so?
different emotions, kind of. Maybe your man is allowed to cry at the public when something sad
In
happens.
Sweden it's common, yeah.
For Ukrainian men, I think it's not common to cry because it's like to show your weakness,
Right.
but it's common to show other emotional.
Of course. Yeah, sorry.
Aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, when something didn't.
exactly. I should rephrase that. We cry more in Sweden. That's more correct. We talked a little bit about the gender equality and Me Too. That was huge in Sweden. Everything changed a lot. My wife really didn't understand it at all. She thought it was standard with how she grew up, I guess. We also talked about we take feedback very personal, or in the wrong way. If you were to give constructive negative feedback, you need to be very, or you should try to be very clear that this is not a personal discussion. I don't dislike you as a person, but I think you should put the blue folder on that side instead. This is wrong.
Thank you.
So I mean, so if you explain that, it makes it easier. But in general, you'll find that we don't like giving or receiving criticism. We hold it in, like the example earlier where nothing, and then you're fired. I wouldn't say that that's an average hit, but building up, and then it sort of goes over the top and becomes too much, rather than dealing with it right away. You know, blue folders that side, simple as that. Instead of sitting here for 10 meetings being angrier and angrier on that blue folder, and then I send you out of the meeting instead, or you understand. So Swedes can tend to build up in a bad way. I think we're doing it wrong, but it's still part of the culture.
We can't do anything about it. Just accept it.
No, but I mean, like I said, you can explain through the fika. I think you should educate people in your culture. We are more straightforward. We talk, we say things that no one would think of saying here. I have one example that we'll see how you react to this. We at daycare. This was before the war, so it was much less Ukrainians around. So anyhow, I can't remember if it was Olivia or, but it's probably Oli. Anyhow, one of our children was sitting in the daycare. You have the area where you get dressed, and I think Olena was talking to the headmaster or something, so she had her watching her phone on a cartoon in Ukrainian. So this new lady comes by, oh, Ukrainian, what's this? And it turns out she was from Ukraine as well. And she just arrived. I guess this was maybe 2018, 2019. And she, oh, that's cool. We should get together. Where my wife says, oh, I don't have time for more friends now, and leaves, which is totally unheard of in Sweden. I mean, if you did that to a Swedish woman, she would start sending emails to the other mothers at this place. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it could happen. Whereas they are now friends. I mean, because she was just stressed, and I think she took it much better than an average Swedish woman would have said. I don't know how common that is. I know my wife she might be the other pendulum even in Ukraine as far as being harsh and mathematical or whatever. But that would have not worked had it been a Swedish woman. Whereas it worked fine with that. I mean, the next time there was more time and they ended up semi hanging out and comparing notes on different cultures and how the kids adapt, etc. So it worked out fine. Would it become more common in Ukraine, you think? And here?
To somebody like, I don't have time for
Yeah, I don't have time right now for new friends.
it does sound a little bit harsh, but maybe I would deal with it.
Yeah, you would deal with it, yeah.
You'd be like, okay.
Yeah. Whereas the Swedish woman would be like, oh my God. and would start, gossiping about it. And I think that's my consensus too. It would be harsh, but okay, tough luck, and you'd move on. Whereas, and that is the.
But it
That's
is
also
not common, I would say.
Yeah.
No, but you're
Because
probably
we also
doing it.
trying to, find another way. Okay, I don't wanna
Yeah.
talk to this woman, but I will like,
Oh, good.
yeah, but not like that.
It's good that you say that because, like, either way, like, it sounds like we're so harsh and straightforward and like rude.
No, you're not.
We are straightforward, but maybe I agree with Veronica. Like, we always try to.
No, but I mean, I don't know how to say this. I mean, you will also have different people. I love my wife. I love that it's simple to talk to her in a sense. I know how she feels in a sense where some of my early relationship with Swedish women was tougher to tell. So some people like it, some people don't like it. And I'm, like I said earlier, I'm trying whenever I talk about stuff, the general average way with nuances in each direction. You will always find extremes, and I certainly don't think that there might be some nuances wrong in the language. Harsh is wrong, but powerful and straightforward, and sometimes saying what we only think here in Sweden. And I think that's true. You're not afraid of being a little bit what some here would say too honest. It's still honest. But here we might hold back a little bit more on being as honest.
Level of honesty depends also where Ukrainian from, because
Probably.
the western part, we like, because I'm from the western part, and we like always trying to be more, I don't know how to say it in English, not so rude, more
Diplomatic.
diplomatic. Yeah, we
I could probably
see
agree
if
with
we
that. Yeah.
make, we try, but I don't guarantee. Whereas on the eastern part of Ukraine, people are more open and can say the rude things, but don't mean it. Just more honest and more like straight.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Actually I haven't thought of that as much, but I think in general, I guess it also there's quite a big difference in the main industry in the western and the eastern. There's much more tourism in the west, I think, than it is in the east, which would promote a more openness toward that. So I would agree as well. I've obviously traveled mostly in the east, but I've done a lot of traveling to Lviv and Truskavets and some of those areas as well. My wife likes to go to the spa, which I do as well.
It also depends on the level of proximity. Like, if I'm comfortable with you, I will probably say something like more honest.
Yeah.
And if this is like a person I meet for the first time, of course I'll try to.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Of
But
course.
if it's like somebody I already know, I'll be pretty honest.
Yeah. I would describe it as similar cultures, but you guys are more. There's more punch to the spice, or you're a little bit more honest, and not at all in a bad way. It's just the way the cultures are different, I think. And as long as you're aware of that, and like I said, when you talk in the fikas, etc., explain to people, I'm trying to learn as much as I can about Swedish culture. Please let me know if I step on someone's toes or say something wrong. And I'm pretty sure it will turn into an interesting discussion with a lot of people that are very interested. I mean, I knew extremely little about Ukraine before I met Olena. I and many of my friends before the war was very frustrated with how poorly we were educated on the eastern part of Europe and the eastern front of World War II, etc. Which was frustrating to me that we know so little about. A lot. One of the few things that are positive, Ukraine has been put more on the map now due to the war, but a lot of people are very interested and want to learn about the culture. And probably if you say things that, I'm struggling with this, I want to know if I'm too blah, 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 it would turn into a perfect fika talk. If you do it objectively, talk about that person over there, not us as individuals. You invent a imaginary person so it doesn't get personal in any way. Then you will probably run into many interesting discussions where people are interested in your culture and in how things are over there, and in comparing, what's suitable here and whatnot.
So look at it through the perspective of our cultural differences, but never criticize, right?
Well, not as much, at least, but yeah, bring it from the perspective of just being different. But like I said, I think here also both criticism and praise, we're bad at it. It is improving. We're having some international influence in some of the bigger companies, but we're terrible at thanking each other and saying good job and thank you for a great meeting or whatever can be positive in a work environment. However, being positive, I think you have to be really poor at it for it not to be better than not being positive. But if you just, which I think, I don't know, actually I couldn't tell who is better at being positive, but I think Ukraine is better at allowing or saying positive things, since you don't have as much of this jantelagen and etc. So you'll probably be better at it, but that is something that it's just it's good, but you should know that we are poor at it. So if you expect, something, a good job after a presentation, you might not get it. And that does not mean everyone thought it was brilliant. We're not very good at it, unfortunately. It is improving slowly, but in general, the mainstream, you will expect less of it, or should expect less of it here than you should do at home, I think. Sick leave depends a lot on obviously nowadays it's changed a lot since a lot of positions offer you to work from home. You do Teams meetings, etc. But it is quite. I think it's more allowed to be out sick here than it is in Ukraine, is my experience. People tough it out more. In Ukraine, just take some aspirin and go to work. Or we are probably comes back to some of the earlier topics. You if you have an opportunity to work, you take it. Here we have social welfare. We get sick leave. I don't know what it is if you're out sick. I mean, do you get paid at all, or do you sometimes not get paid, or does the government cover part of it, or?
Depends on company, because government company cover your sick days, and private company, or especially when they ask you to open a FOB, it's like self-employed.
Right.
Then you don't get a compensation for sick days. You just don't get paid because you don't work at
Right.
the time.
But it does depend on the employer.
Yeah. Depends.
So if you were to guess, but half of the working population gets sick leave and half don't, or?
Maybe something like that.
But it's still a significant amount of people that don't get paid for sick leave.
And also, when we get paid, it's usually a little part of
Not
It's less
100%.
than 80% that we have here.
Yeah.
But if here it's only 80% up to a certain, what,
Week.
some 40,000 or something, 45 maybe?
I think 14 days, right? You have the Försäkringskassa compensation because from the first day you're not paid,
Right.
and then from the second day and up to 14 days. if
That's the
you're-
employer that cover.
Yeah, and then it's
Försäkringskassa.
Försäkringskassa, but then
And
you
only
need,
80% of basbelopp. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like a standard. So I think it's 80% of maximum 45,000 a month or something like that. So if you make 70,000 a month, it wouldn't be 80% unless you have an extra insurance that you can purchase. But by standard, you don't have that.
I have a very like strange factor to count it because at my work I have not one. So if I'm sick for like 3 days, those 2 days, like except for caught in some dark, they're gonna be counted not just as 1 day, but as a 1.23.
Good.
So it's a very strange factor. This is what we have in Nacka, like commune, like in the whole municipality. So it like there's a lot of people. Yeah, so it's a strange factor.
For me, when I first came to Sweden, it was strange when I was sick, and in Ukraine, when you get sick, you need to go to your doctor for the first day, and you open like
sick leave.
yeah. But here you can be sick for 5 days,
Yeah.
and then you only need
1
to
week.
get 1 week.
We have 1 week.
Oh, okay, 5, 7.
5 working days.
5 working days, yeah, correct. And then you need to take this notice.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting here.
You know, you told about this, you were talking about how we're so tough and like we continue to work. So I have this problem, like I'm getting my wisdom teeth taken out today, like later. And my job, like my boss was so very direct that I should stay home tomorrow. But I insisted on like taking Alvedon and coming to work.
We don't knew so.
But have you done it yet, or you will do it?
I'm getting them extracted today, like at 6.
So we'll see what you say afterwards.
I already had this like 2 weeks ago.
You had one. Okay.
Like
Because
I looked horrible, but it still worked. And actually, I have a teacher that's kind of like very close to me. She told me like, you should have stayed home because kids are very scared of like your face. So,
right.
maybe she was scared and not kids.
My wife could have done the same thing.
Yeah,
And I think
it's like part of culture.
Yeah, and I think that has to do with, if I compare my growing up to her growing up outside Balaklia, Balaklia, but outskirts, walking around in the sun in the days with the ducks or whatever, and working with the hard physical labor, and walking to school without shoes to keep the one pair she had clean, and she'd bring them on when she get to school. It's a world that is so different. We've become lazy due to having it too easy, I think. But then again, specifically with pain, I think that's from person to person, I think, a little bit as well. Some people can live with pain more, some cannot. But I think in general, you guys are tougher in that sense as well.
Yeah, in this situation, I'm thinking about like I don't want to lose my money, so I'd rather like suppress the pain and take some.
I still call it tough. You're not. So, but I can understand. Yeah, and my wife would have done the same thing. She's never sick. She never takes vacation either, unfortunately. Sorry?
Who wants?
Well,
Nobody wants.
no, I want to have my goal. Since I changed my job, the way I work now is sort of a combination between having your own company and being employed. So I can determine my time. So I haven't had less than 12 weeks of vacation since I started there in 2019 because I want to spend time with my kids on their school break. I was late starting with kids, frustrating. So now I take it up by spending a lot more time with them instead. But I mean, if you don't want a vacation, fine. That works too. I love it though. I'm lazy and life is too short to go second class, I think. Also a little interesting, Sweden has a disproportional amount of large corporations per capita. Which comes down to this, the group consensus. We're good at organizing large engineering projects. I mean, if you look at Ericsson, SKF, a lot of very large industries exist in Sweden. Compared to many other countries, there's the proportion of large Fortune 500 style companies is not standard in Sweden. And that, I think, has to do with our group consensus, being able to work, because the larger organizations you have, the more diplomacy is needed to control them. If you have a small 50 people company, it's enough with the founder, you know, talking at the fika to change direction of a company. If you have 10,000 employees, you need these diplomatic and more group structured routines and logistics that we sort of have, like I said, in our mother's milk in a way. So that's more of a reflection, but there are a lot of large, very interesting international companies to look for and find jobs in it, that are out there that often hire, and there's a lot of people. You have 10,000 employees, always there's going to be a lot of positions open. And coming to that, we can do that a little bit now. I think that when networking, this would have been strange many years ago, but it's growing here, and with today's world and with what do you call it, influencers and being extreme, etc., getting attention is being more accepted. One of my most brilliant and best friends in 1994, when we graduated from university, had this idea on how to get a job. And this was in the United States. So he took 10 companies where he was interested in getting a job. He made a video of himself wishing the HR manager for that company, large companies, and mailed it to them for Christmas. With the idea being, who the hell is this? You know, they would look at the video, Jonas, blah, blah, blah. No idea, throw it away. And then 6 months later, his resume or CV would come. Jonas, I recognize this. Can't tell from where, but something feels familiar. And that way it'd get in. So I think it's very smart. Don't be afraid. And in Sweden, that would have been almost too strange then in the 90s. Now we're getting more with the extreme YouTubers, etc. So don't be afraid of, for example, writing an email or trying to contact HR to say, I have a long-term plan. I would like to join your company. This is as far as I can describe myself, blah, 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 resume, etc. How can I join your company? What do I need to focus? Do I need to get a certification in some sort of a tool or standards, agile project management, whatever? Don't be afraid of contacting them in a. And here's the hard balance. You can't be too aggressive, but you have to be a little bit aggressive, and that's always tough because it depends on the person on the other end. But keep in mind that HR people are used to being hammered with people interesting if it's a popular company. So be honest. You have, like the way we sell IT consultants now at my company, there is a one-time opportunity because people want to help Ukraine. That gives you a little bit easier way to get in the door, and use it. Use it. I mean, it's don't. You should be early on in explaining. I'm here as a refugee, blah blah blah, but I like the country, blah blah blah, and I'm interested in your company, so that they early on see it, because it will help a little, and sometimes probably a lot as well. I think that it's a one-time opportunity that will help you get the foot in the door. Might not help you land the job in the end, but if you get to the last 3 to 5, I would say on average, when you get to an interview, you're one of 3 people. Sometimes they find 5 people that they want to interview, but if you get to an interview, You're very interesting, and you also learn from the interviews. You learn to feel how did that go. It's good to have experience in doing interviews. I have no idea how interviews work in Ukraine, actually.
You watch more hard skills than soft skills for the candidates.
Right.
So you must show that you know this, you have experience in this, and I think it's a little bit similar to US because when our company searching for employee, they search for very qualified, very technique specialist, and it's more about technical skills rather than soft skills.
It depends on the industry as well.
I'm talking about IT sector.
Right.
I've had an
Yeah, but-
experience, so
But then at the same time, because I have an experience working in an IT company, with my previous employer, and then we were struggling with IT specialists not having soft skills, and then selling this people to the customers, and then like we have to train them, and that's why we organize a lot of soft skills training for them, because they are really strong technical professionals. Like they know a lot, but they don't know how to talk to people. So it's always about the balance.
Got a question on there? Or? No?
I was talking. I said that I've had this experience that actually like first pre-screening, like initial interviews with Ukrainian companies, and I'm talking also about IT companies. They were done in like much more friendly way, like friendlier way than from what I had here in Sweden. So they didn't ask me like typical questions. It was more like a friendly talk. And it was also like a very big difference between like Swedish interviews and Ukrainian interviews.
Which one was the friendlier, more of a talk?
Ukrainians
Ukrainian, okay, interesting.
like have this formal questions that they usually have, and the industry like my job, it's like a mix of like hard and soft skills. So, but still, anyway, we had like a very friendly like conversation, and they were very open about this. Like, we're not gonna ask you, you're not like a candidate for us. You're more like, like just a chit chat about like the possibilities.
My feeling is that obviously there's big differences in different industries, but one thing that I've actually originally this was done for our IT partners when we had, I think I said that in the beginning. So I've taken out one thing, but being that there's a lot of IT people here, I think that one thing that I've seen is that Ukraine has been going through an IT boom since, I don't know, 2015, 16, 17, somewhere. That is equivalent to what Sweden and Europe went through in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I've seen many similarities to it. And we've struggled a little bit with that, given that it's been so easy to grow and develop in the IT industry in Ukraine that people have sometimes unrealistic expectations here. Plus, if you take the word senior in a young industry compared to an old industry, it's sometimes people misunderstand each other. A senior the company where we're extremely senior, because the company where I'm at now, we started with COBOL programming, which was big in the 80s and 90s. So we have some very, very old, very brilliant, very senior developers that still do this. They're semi-retired, but they love it so much. And and then we have a lot of Ukrainian partners that become senior after 3-4 years. So we've had some misunderstandings in the wording and stuff, since it's a younger boom in Ukraine. Plus, you've had lots of opportunity to do exactly what you like in Ukraine. Plus, being young, it's also been a lot of startups, small companies, and it's easier to sell abroad for smaller companies. And then they come here and they run into the large, boring world of some of the big IT departments here. We've struggled a lot with that you have young, hungry, very brilliant developers, but if they don't get to do what they want, work with the latest and coolest tools, they get bored and they leave. So keep in mind when you're looking around, because we did a lot of errors with this 2 years ago or 3 years ago, where we said we work, you know, top of the line, the latest, the coolest for large industries, which never have the latest tools because they need to be tested. We have huge environments with legacy systems and interactions. So I had an example, that's the one I cut out, where you know, if we look for a senior developer for an important project here, he'll do programming 1 hour a day tops. The rest is in meetings explaining what the application can do. It's how do I get the data from my application to your application. Sounds like overkill for a small startup company, but if you have something that's extremely important for a large industry, I myself, I went to lunch once when I ran a project at Astra. It's the medical company, if you heard it. And AstraZeneca, yeah. So I was decommissioning their old R&D department or part of it, and we were taking down applications and servers. And one was fine. There was a lot of legacy system that was taken over by SAP. So I go to lunch, and suddenly someone's pulling up in a taxi really fast. Andreas, you shut down the factory, and that factory makes $30,000 an hour, or $30 million an hour. And I hadn't shut it down, but it's a good example because in one of these old legacy servers was the pictures for the medicine cans, the Astra logo. They decommissioned everything except a few GIF files. So suddenly they couldn't print the labels for the pills. And being a very restricted, you know, so it's these small effects that cost so much for large industries. So that's why you can only program 1 hour a day. The rest has to be looked into details. And so you need to be a person with people skills, being able to spend time in meetings, understanding, and 2 minutes a day saying, yes, that we can do in the application, or no, we can't do that, and understand what your application can do and not do in the future.
Sorry, but we ran out of time. So how should we do that?
Well, we can continue at some other time, or well, I can continue now. I don't have to be anywhere, depending on what people need to do, or we schedule another time if it's interesting enough to. What do you guys think? Was it worthwhile, or did it give you anything, or should I change something? Yeah, I mean, did we not cover some topics that you wanted to cover? Give me ideas for if.
I am started to search job here in IT sector, and the very important information for me is would be the culture in CV, cover letters.
Right.
Because, for example, I hear that here in Sweden, it can be rude and offensive to send CV in a Word, like format. Yeah, it's better to send in PDF format. So
Probably.
so these differences between Ukraine and Sweden
Yeah.
in CV and cover letters. When you search
That could be correct. I don't think I use PDF just to make sure nothing is changed by mistake. If they open something up and happen to hit some.
it was like one example, but
Yeah.
it would be interesting to hear more about culture.
Yeah, one thing that I think is very important, I'll mention it really quickly, that we've seen a lot of problems with. In Sweden, always show your full work history. Even if you worked at McDonald's or as a lumberjack or as a hair cutter, because Sweden has a history of thinking, oh, there's a 2-year gap here. Was she in jail? Was he in jail? Show, and it's stupid because it can be completely irrelevant to the job you're getting. But historically, you want to see everything timed from school or university up till today.
It's not fit in one page. It's gonna be, in my case, it's gonna be like 2-3 pages of experience.
5. I think I have 5. I always do the relevant, relevant
So people
2 or 3 first,
yes,
and then I have
extra pages.
remaining. But that needs to be chronological and cover your whole time. I have my parental leave in there. I have, well, nowadays I don't have when I worked as a swim teacher. I did in the beginning when I was younger. And it's also very good to show if you did anything as a teenager before, I mean, your professional life, full-time life, because that is considered good here. It's considered, you know, you have the will to work even when you don't have to. In Sweden, being a teenager for the last 50 years, you haven't had to work because there's been usually enough money with the family to support life. Whereas in many cultures, probably yours, it would benefit if you did some extra work so that then you could, you know, get along and maybe buy some better clothes and stuff. So we haven't had that. So here it sort of proves that, yeah, you took responsibility and worked. So show as much, you cannot show too little. And certainly cover everything from whatever your last education was until today, even if it's completely irrelevant.
It's boring to read everything.
Or it's
It will be boring to read everything.
no, but I mean it's not. They won't necessarily read it, but they will look at the dates and make sure that it's very common. It's just a culture thing, and we've had it with a lot of the consultants we have that they only send the relevant for that specific IT project, and we can't send that to the customer. But then we have to redo it, and then we lose the contract because it took 2 days to add a few pages to a CV because. Well, what do they care if I was a gymnast or whatever before? But we do.
What our recruiters at Professional Support Center always tell to candidates that it's really important to adjust your CV for every position.
Yeah.
And last month we also had a career counseling with a head of talent acquisition in Ericsson. He's also Ukrainian. And he was saying that for now it doesn't matter like the size of the CV because we're always aiming for 1 page. But now at the first, like big companies, at the first step, they also have machines. They use machines scanning the CV. So now it doesn't matter. You have 2-3 pages because it's not the manual work anymore.
Well, I think the cover page, the first page, which should contain a short text plus the most relevant that's the key. But once they have 2, 3, 4 candidates, then they will look at the history and sort of verify. Okay, let's make sure there's a gap here in 10 years. What happened then? And then you just deselected because people don't have time to explain some of the errors. They just because they have too many equally good candidates. You had a question down?
I have 2 years of quite fresh IT experience before war. And in Sweden, I feel like it's not enough. And sometimes I think about maybe I should write that I have 5 years of experience. Is it as bad?
Beneficial.
But sorry, I don't understand. You had 2 years in the field where you're aiming at, or
I have IT education,
yeah.
and then I have a time working with my business, not in IT.
Right.
And then I back to IT.
Right.
I have 2 years of experience, and then work start.
Right.
My project was finished.
Right.
At the time. And I have 2 years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
But when recruiters ask me
Your IT experience specifically. Yeah.
it's just 2 years.
Right.
And then I get no, you are not good enough.
Right. I can understand that, and probably it's going to be a problem if you're in a situation where you don't control the situation, being that you're in contact with It's the recruiter. It's the recruiter's advantage. If you instead find an industry or a company that you like, and then I would rephrase and have maybe called a white lie, where you say, you know, I'm a person with 15 years of work experience. I have experience in IT. I have experience in management or whatever, and sort of not get into the specifics to get their attention, and also say, so then it's sort of more on your terms, instead of waiting to receive the question, how much experience do you have in Java or whatever, the specifics. Try to get to a situation where you can be more general, get their attention before you get into details, and hopefully also get an interest in general before talking about the details. Because I think that if you're in a situation where you do mainstream speed dating, recruiting, and all those situations, then you're always going to fail on stupid details. But there are companies out there that look at, like, I'm building a team now, and like I talked to you about earlier, I have young, brilliant people that don't want to work. I would much rather have young, non-brilliant people that want to work, because I can train them. And more people are understanding that finding the right person that we can train is good enough.
Can I show that I'm not quite young person, but I can work, I can study?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's creating an interest through those first few 5 to 7 sentences, that where you need to get their attention in a little text on the first page when you're looking to find a company, and that should say, you know, I am hungry, blah blah blah, for this, and I believe that I can contribute to your organization in this way. In 5 sentences, can you aim that in, and find a company? Like I said earlier, try to find an HR person or someone working there, and ask them, what could I do to be interesting to you as a company? Can I learn ServiceNow as a ticketing system extra good? Can I be certified in this product or whatever, and show interest, and over time, I think it's a slow process, being that Sweden has this rigid job market. I don't know, but I would say that it takes you 3 to 9 months to get a job, and then it's still quick.
3 years.
Yeah,
I can
but
find job in 3 years.
yeah, but then I mean, for a Swedish person that knows this system and how it works, and then 9 months is quick. When I was unemployed in 2002, the bubble burst, it took me a year and a half to find, and then I took a job I didn't want. Turned out good, but I didn't plan to want it. So it's a tough. IT market is terrible here right now, unfortunately.
Andreas, you told us that you're also like building a team for your company.
Right.
Are you like also a person who's like reviewing the CVs and stuff?
I will be. We have a set team of consultants that we're going to exchange to employees. So I will be doing that. We will probably offer some of the consultants a position if they behave well this coming 6 months, and then we will be recruiting some more. Yes.
But you haven't started yet.
No, not started on this. No, yet. They'll start sometime this fall, probably.
I wonder like how many people out of all people that's gonna like show interest in your company are gonna attach like a CV or a website. I mean, a website about them, because I saw this trend like 4 years ago, and I don't see it that much like these days, that candidates show their websites instead of CVs, or as a like just additional information to their CV.
I don't know. I did a lot of recruiting a few years ago. I haven't done a whole lot of recruiting the last 5-7 years. So
when you had recruiting have you like seen like, candidates having their websites attached to CVs? Not popular in Sweden like anymore.
No, I'd say they have the link to their LinkedIn.
No, I mean like a whole website, like a
Yeah,
link.
but no, I have seen very few websites.
Would you like consider it, or maybe say that it would like highlight me out of the crowd if I had this?
If it's good.
It's good.
It all depends on if it's in the eyes of the beholder.
Yeah.
But if it's good, yeah, sure. Anything to stand out that shows this, but it also depends on what position you're looking for. The team I'm hiring is all pretty much all non-academic. It's a IT support department. You know, swapping out keyboards and screens and on-site IT support. Is that we're building a new team. Then we would have much poorer CVs and not at all that type of further thought of being able to show. But I think it's one way of showing more details. So you have like a cover page and then attach that to, and I would say that's probably better than having, if I were recruiting, I'd like one page and not have to print out 5 more, but rather have a link where I can see the 5 more.
That's the idea behind it.
I would prefer that. I hate paperwork. I think it might be good. I haven't seen it, but I think it would be a good idea.
Actually, I in my CV created a link to my webpage, which I write and published with links and previews on my works of when I was self-employed and creating like custom websites. So it's better to do, or
I think you should.
If machine scans CVs, will it check these links?
If what a machine?
Machine check CVs.
Right.
Will it check also links?
I have no idea.
I think I know, because if it's AI machine scannery, they look for keywords that they type into the chat. And if you like the link is out of this keyword list, they will not check it.
Probably not.
So like, if the AI tool has like this ability, because not like any kind of AI tool has ability to read websites. If they have it, they'll probably read your website. But if they have this simple version of like keyword check, they won't.
Tell us when we need to leave. I'll stay here as long as you want.
Probably like in 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Because then we have our cleaning assistants and yeah.
So what should we cover in 5 minutes to make the most out of it?
Maybe a few pieces of advice. Your advice.
In general.
Yeah.
I would say that the quality over quantity, as I said earlier. I think that everyone should have a LinkedIn account that's not over the top. Keep it very simple and have a good, catchy, small text about yourself that explains who you are. That grabs someone's attention. Really put a lot of effort into that, because even if you think this might be strange, but it should show who you are, because down the road you will have so much. It's going to be much easier to get a good match with an employer. If you, it can be simple, but it needs to truly be who you are. It depends a little bit on industry and work, of course, but as long as you have, unless you have no social interaction in like a scientist sitting in a corner, then it's not really important. Then it's only obviously important with the facts. But the majority of jobs, you need to prove that I'm a functioning person. I can function in a group. I can understand. The directions given to me, and I can participate and contribute, etc. Don't try to, back to quantity over quality, don't try to get as many contacts as you can with in LinkedIn. Try to get quality contacts. I and everyone I know will not check LinkedIn in detail, but I will see what network a person belongs to if I'm recruiting. And now and then I get a question, you know this person, you're connected on LinkedIn, we're looking to recruit that person. So people will go do checks behind them. They might ask you for references once you get there, but they will also do pre-references on their own through their network on LinkedIn. And then it's important that you don't have, 300 people that you sort of added without not really. You should have. I have the rule that I need to have some sort of interaction with a person before I connect with them on LinkedIn, because I want to be some sort of quality, because I think that's just more genuine. Otherwise, plus, if you just accept all connections, you end up with all kinds of salespeople that just really don't give you any value. So I set the level that I have some sort of interaction with people, because it's better to have a small network that's quality than a large network that's not quality. Don't be afraid to ask. Like I said, ask all HR. How do I best find information on how to become attractive at your company? They might not take a long phone call, but they might give you a link to these are the values and qualities at our company, some information you can read up on, and then, like we said earlier, target and I felt like lying. I didn't like it in the beginning, but sort of rewrite your CV with the direction toward that, which hopefully is what they like in culture, etc. It's probably yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm studying data science, and what will be better for me to get master degree in Swedish university, or give a list of course I make, pet projects, maybe certifications.
Those are the projects that I did for 2 years, you said, or
I'm thinking about will master degree help me to get job?
probably. You have a bachelor's degree now.
I have master degree, but I hope I can make a master degree in machine learning and data science.
Okay, so you don't have a master's degree in machine learning and data science? No. Okay. But you have a master's degree in something else? Right.
In Ukraine, we usually IT related, when it's IT related. So usually people complete some courses, like schools,
Right.
but it's not related to like bachelor or master's degree. That's what
You can get them translated, right? To whatever level it is there.
I think the question is like this, it doesn't have that much value here in Sweden because you're supposed to have master's degree within this field that you're applying to.
Well, that would all depend. I mean, having my first university was in the United States, so I've done some, and I also worked at Verket för högskoleservice, where they translate international CVs into or educations to whatever equivalent it is in Sweden. So I would say, I don't know who could take a look at it, but have someone take a look at it, because it could be that you have some really valuable courses that would be valuable here if people dare to understand them correctly. And there used to be, at least I know my wife had her degree translated into what they consider to be equivalent in Sweden. And when that's done formally, people trust the papers or the numbers and the courses much more. So step one, look into that. And if you feel you could probably find someone, perhaps at the people that translate or some other good person in that field that can tell you these are valuable, courses that you have. You don't really need to add on with just a Swedish version, because this should be good enough to get you into, because that field is obviously growing a lot. I don't know in details about it, but I would first look into having a formal translation of the degree, because it also depends on what school are you at. I don't know how Ukraine is, but I'm assuming it's like all countries, that you have some good schools and some not as good schools. And if you take Sweden and the US, I mean, you can't compare Harvard and Wichita State University, even though they both call it a bachelor. It's worlds apart. And that official translation helps you with that. So that I would do that as step one, and then perhaps decide. But I would also ask someone in the industry, ask a company, if I go get a master's, will it help me get a job? They'll probably be honest whether it will or not.
More questions?
I hope it was beneficial.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
you for the people who stayed still online with us.
Yeah.
We have some, thank you.
for So,
Valuable tips.
but you can send this out. I mean, that's free. You'll send this out, I guess, for the people if they want to presentation.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
If you're allowed that, so.
Yeah. Not the problem.
So the presentation and the recording we'll send to all the participants.
Excellent. Hopefully that will help. And I'll stop sharing here, I guess.
Yes.
You need to stop recording now that we're just jabbering. I need to use the restroom.
Yes, of course. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Наді і Стефана